I can't think of a headline more likely to trigger not just me, but every blimmin' woman in Britain. Scientists blame working mums for UK's child obesity epidemic. I'm sorry, good grief. Where to start? With the news that a kid is more likely to be overweight if the mother's employed. Repeat after me. All mothers are working mothers, whether they work inside the home or outside the home. Meanwhile, it made no difference to a child's weight whether or not their father worked, which tells us everything we need to know. It's because women still are, in the main, primary caregivers and responsible for, gosh, well, pretty much everything, which is why KFC's family mega bucket deal was famously marketed as Mum's Night Off. It's mothers, not fathers, who are judged if Junior eats junk food in front of the telly. The fact that boffins mum shame for this tells us so much more about fathers than it does about mothers, and also tells us it's long overdue for dads to step up to the dinner plate and pull their weight.
Yeah, pretty much agree with everything you said. All mothers are definitely working mothers. The reason that children are probably getting larger is a combination of factors. They're not eating as healthily as they probably did. There's too much fast food, which is laden with all sorts of salt and all sorts of things they shouldn't be eating. But it also actually comes back to both central and local government, which is that there aren't enough schools with playing fields. A lot of the playing fields have been sold off. Exercise doesn't take place in school, possibly not given enough priorities it should be. So I agree to all of the above. More should be done. That's why we're breeding. It's nothing to do with working mums. That's why we're
working dad, that you haven't pulled your weight at home as much as you could have done?
Well, mine was a different situation because, of course, when I divorced, the children stayed with me. Ah. So it was a slightly different situation. Okay. So I didn't have a choice. If I hadn't fed them, we all wouldn't be here.
Well, so it's different. OK, well, that's interesting to hear. But I think for the most part, women are primary.
Yeah.
And
can we have taste my cooking desperately unexpected.
Can we just have a look at some figures so the viewer has a sense of what the imbalance in the housework load between men and women? And you see from these screens that on cooking, childcare, laundry and housework, women do, unlike you, Nick, about more than twice what men do.
No, you're absolutely right. And these figures, and I will yield after this. No, the classic stereotypical home is, yeah, you're right. Dad goes off on a Friday night, he goes to the pub with his mates or whatever, and poor old mum probably is doing a shift as well. Yeah. She comes back and she looks after the kids. Mine was an exceptional set of circumstances.
Well, so I'm in a position where I have a child, a 2-year-old, and therefore currently in the position where I could be or could not be a caregiver, depending on how the arrangement is. And currently our arrangement, and I think partly because the problem is I am when I work on a fees basis, not on a PAYE basis, so I don't get paternity leave. And so part of the arrangement we made was a purely pragmatic arrangement based upon how we can both achieve what we want in the long term. So it ended up being that I take the primary division of financial labour, even though she also works, but then I pay for the childcare. Now, the problem with that setup is, of course, people that can't afford to do that can't afford to do that, and so then the mother ends up becoming the primary caregiver, and that's basically not fair on either side. I wish I had paternity leave. I wish the law allowed me to spend more time with my child and paid me to do it, and currently it doesn't, and if I did do that, we wouldn't be able to pay the rent.
Michelle, you're a modern young woman. When you share a house with your partner, which I assume you will at some point, are you going to make sure that he does 50%? Because all the surveys show that even if both partners are working, the woman still does more.
My boyfriend would absolutely do what you need to do. So I like a cup of tea in bed when I wake up. Not that you need to have this insight to my life. Me and my boyfriend absolutely take it in turns to make it. One day he'll do it, the next day I'll do it. There is no way in this land...
but that's a little loving gesture, Michelle. I'm talking about who puts
the kids...
I was about to say...
How long have you been going out with this bloke?
Long enough for him to still be making me...
Yeah, precisely, honestly. Give it a couple of months, love, it's never going to happen.
We've got to move it away from Michelle's love life or sex life.
My point is serious. I wouldn't be in a relationship where the man expected me to do the lion's share of the cooking,
You say
cleaning.
that, Michelle.
No,
you say that.
I absolutely mean it. I have a string of ex-boyfriends that can testify to this. I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't
you have
have
children, don't you?
Can I bring it down to
Yeah.
a less glamorous level than having been waited on with a lovely tea in bed? I remember those days. I love this cartoon because I just recognise it, and I suspect other women will recognise it too. This is The Mental Load, a feminist comic by Emma.
Yeah.
She says, I start by picking up something to put it away, but on the way I come across a dirty towel that I go to put in the laundry basket, which I find full. So I go to the washing machine and I see the vegetables that need to be put in the fridge. And as I'm putting away the vegetables, I realise that I need to add mustard to the shopping list, and so on and so forth. In the end, I've cleared away my table after 2 long hours, only to find it covered in stuff again later that evening. If I ask my partner to clear the table, he'll just clear the table. The towel will stay on the floor, the vegetables will rot on the kitchen counter, and we won't have any more mustard for dinner.
Yeah.
I actually think that that is so reflective of things you can't even imagine until you are in a domestic situation where you're doing like 3 loads of washing every night and you're doing your online shopping while you get dinner ready, while you're arranging someone's homework.
You're a mother as well.
I'm a mother. I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I mentor young women. And when I mentor them, one of the things I always tell them is, choose your partner so carefully. Choose your partner so carefully, because before I had a child, I couldn't have imagined.
Did you choose wrong, Afra?
Oh, I made a phenomenally wise
Is he
choice,
still
for which
making
I
tea
take
for
no
you?
credit. For which I take no credit, but I wish somebody had told me to do it deliberately. That when you choose your partner, it needs to be somebody who is not just ideologically committed to being on board, but feels
nice
equally
person.
invested, that you don't have to delegate to that person, that they will take responsibility. But I also think this is structural. It's not just about individual choices, because this is why the pay gap matters. Men are getting paid more. It means that men don't have the option of being the one
that's what I was hinting
who
at,
stays at
with the
home
law
more.
changes,
Men then are under pressure to be the one to work because they earn more. It makes economic sense. So
I mean,
your
I'm
situation,
married to an
Majid-
artist who paints on canvas, and she ain't selling paintings every day, I can tell you that. So there's a problem right there.
But that's, even though your situation is a bit specific because you're self-employed as well, a lot of couples, even though they have that idea that they want to share, find themselves pressurised by the way that their incomes are structured, that the man ends up being the one that goes to work, the woman is the one who is at home more, and then they get stuck in those roles. And that when the man comes home from work, he's not being in tune with all of the tasks that need doing, and it just perpetuates
Can I
stuff.
ask a
So no
question?
matter how good your intentions are, it can be quite hard to push back against everything society is putting on you.
To the mothers on the panel, can you have it all? I mean, has that now been debunked, in your view?
I think you can, but you do need, as I said earlier, you need to have a fairer division of household labour. If a woman's going to be able to work and have children and have a life that isn't in just domestic drudgery, she needs support at home. And in your case, it's paid, it's financial. But can we go back to my topic, which is why are we shaming mothers and blaming them for obesity when it's obviously a very complex
I
issue?
think everybody agrees it's wrong, though. The reason that we've moved away is, I mean, I think
but
that's
the
shameful.
evidence shows
I like the way you read the headline, though. I was wondering if you could do that.
Excellent.
If you could bring in any clips or cuttings in that way, I'd be, much better disposed with. But no, I don't think there's any agreement in the panel. It's an absurd suggestion.
But I think we do still have these internalised ideas. I mean, I still hear people at the school gate when a dad is the one who drops the child off every day going, isn't he wonderful?
Really?
Isn't he great? And
They should have seen me.
I hear it. Yeah. You must have been lapping that
Well,
up.
I don't know. Those are other
Dad's
times.
night off.
Right. Well, it's described as one of the toughest challenges on Earth. And I'm not talking about working with this lot every week. But we've got more people climbing Mount Everest or going into space than successfully rowing across the Atlantic solo. Weeks at sea by yourself, 40-foot waves, limited food supplies, and only sleeping for 2 hours at a time would challenge even the most committed sportsman. But Lee Spencer was determined not to let any of that, or the fact that he's had one of his legs amputated 5 years ago, stop him. The former Royal Marine not only succeeded in rowing himself from mainland Europe to South America, he smashed the record for doing so by 36 days. And here's what he had to say when he reached the finishing line after 61 days at sea.
The thing that kept me going has been exactly that. That proving that no one should be defined by disability, that no one should be defined by something that they're not good at. Records are there to be broken. I'm so glad that I got it, and thank you so much. It's actually beginning to sink in that I've done it and I broke the record.
Lee Spencer I love you, and you are our record breaker of the week.
And while undoubtedly his rowing skills are without question, perhaps his knowledge of broadcasting not quite the same, because let's be honest about it, if you've done it for that amount of time you've been at sea, you probably fancy a drop of beer. What he didn't realise was that the cameras were rolling during all his broadcast interviews.
He's a lad.
So each gap in the interviews, having been on the drink, he decided to have a drink. I don't blame him. I
He's a lad.
Well done.
What a lad.
Well done.
Huge amount of respect for him, and he shows it's not what happens to you, but it's how you respond to it which matters. Right, that is it for this week. But if you want to join in the debate, just search for The Pledge on Facebook or Twitter, but be nice. See you next time.